Hey everybody, welcome. We are so glad you're here today, and we're excited because we have a special guest. Our friend Janna is here with us today.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Okay, is it?
It is.
You have no idea what to expect.
Well, I've just had a clap so far,
Okay.
so I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, it's good because we don't really know what to expect either, which kind of leads to what this podcast is really about. This is your first time here. Stetson, what is this podcast about?
That's a really good question. I think we're all figuring that out together. And I think we hope we never have a very clear, same answer to that. Every week we come together and we become a compilation of each other's lives and thoughts and experiences. And maybe part of those thoughts come from like the sermon the previous week or the week forward, but not necessarily. I don't know. This can go anywhere.
It also has like the feeling of the just the behind the scenes of us and here's how things come to be. And I know I hear a whole bunch of people always talking about like it's so cool like who you are up on stage, and that's like born from us and our friendship and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so I think there's a glimpse into that. So just to be a bit vulnerable, I have a pretty incredible head cold right now. I feel like the superpower I have to connect dots has been gone.
Foggy.
There's like kryptonite in the center of this
That's
table,
great.
and I'm just like,
That's
just
awesome.
need to pay attention to one thing, and I will get through it. But I think there's this feeling I have every time I get sick of like, man, it's so cool to be sick because I'm brought back to this place of like being a human being. Because all the other times I feel like I'm going to conquer, I'm great, I can do it, and then like the tiniest thing, just
You're
I'm
at the
gone.
mercy of your
I'm
body
gone.
now.
It's like, so if God called, I would answer right now.
it's
Like it's one of those like, man,
Yes.
that was easy.
Yep.
That was easy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
I can be the dot connector today.
Yeah,
I'll try.
That'd be beautiful. I would love that.
All right.
I always think though, thinking about this podcast, it's like, so I think the purpose of for each podcast, it always happens by the end. It's like it gets there, and then all of us go, oh, that was really good. Thank God.
Yep.
And then it's show up again and see if it happens. But it always seems to happen. So.
Yeah. And the day that it doesn't, the podcast will be over.
Oh man.
we'll say,
no, it's our last one.
no, we'll come to this place of like, well,
Well, that was
I
it.
think this was our last episode.
That was
Season's
terrible.
That was kind of disappointing. We shouldn't do that again.
We might not even air it.
Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that never gets aired.
Janna's all.
Hopefully not.
Welcome,
so much
Janna.
pressure right now.
I'm glad that you're here.
So welcome.
I would love to hear about you, Janna. Who are you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and who are you? Not
Yes.
like, what
Yeah.
do you do? Like,
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
you?
Well,
Who is this,
obviously,
Janna?
Who is
I work
this
here at the
Janna?
church, in the kids, but most everyone
No.
work
Who
in the
are
kids
you?
area.
No.
I'm getting there.
It's my heart and passion.
Well, I have been a little bit from everywhere. I was a missionary kid, a pastor's kid. So probably, you've heard the saying, Jesus came to seek and save the lost. I was probably the most found lost person,
Okay.
meaning growing up in the church and always knowing the right answers, but not really having that deep personal relationship with Jesus. Your sermon on Sunday just resonated inside my soul with just Jesus sees you, he knows you, he's before you, beside you, behind you. I didn't really experience that growing up as a kid. Growing up in Austria, there was always this sense of I have to perform, I have to meet this expectation, live a certain way. Everyone's watching me, and that really caused.
Hold on, just a pause button.
Is that because of
I
Austria?
just want to
Like,
circle the
where the
fact that
Von
she
Trapp
grew up in
family was.
Austria. She grew up in Austria. I even heard her parents do a gospel presentation as they
Yodel.
I was there for that too.
So
That's
I
embarrassing.
You're like, now we're talking about my parents.
Yeah.
I know you have
But
a,
it's true.
you have a
Used to make me
celebrity
yodel
in your
and
family. I
shoe-blottle
know
with it,
that.
Did they really?
Oh, yes.
Wait,
No,
what
I'm
did
not going to do it.
You
They
don't
made
have
me
to. I
used
just picture it
yodel
perfectly in my
and
mind.
shoe-blotting and we were called the Von Tyners.
So explain the shoe blotting.
It's a European dance, an Austrian dance with hands. You slap your knees, you move your feet, you flap your feet. It's embarrassing.
Shoe blotting.
I was
Yeah.
going to guess it was cheese made in shoes.
Close.
Would you like some shoe blotting?
Would you like more shoe
No. No, Donka.
Hey, good job.
Okay.
Yes.
Back to you.
Okay.
So even before Austria, my father was a pastor in Kansas, and I often would have people like, "Hey, you're the pastor kid. You need to act this way. You need to behave this way." And then that just kind of transpired even when we were in Austria too, to a lot of people that were never from my parents. I have to put that out there, but from just other people in the church. Sure. Janna, you have to behave a certain way, and so it just became more of a religion than a relationship for me growing up, to the point where I kind of was trying to find myself and searching for something more, something real. When I left Austria, I went to Bible college in Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota. And even there, still just not really feeling God's presence in my life and desperately realizing that I was searching for something more, that there was something missing. Probably wasn't really until I went on a mission trip to Romania for like a 3-week mission trip. We were working in hospitals for abandoned babies and orphanages. Sorry. Working in hospitals for abandoned babies and orphanages. And I remember going with this sense of, I'm going to save the world. This is what's missing. And, just always trying so hard to gain God's love and acceptance. And the moment we walked into the hospital, the ward, the section that had the abandoned babies, you could smell, you just smelled. They weren't loved. They weren't cared for by the nurses there very much. They actually would tie a lot of the babies to the cribs, and they would say it so that the babies wouldn't fall out of the crib. But really, it was so they wouldn't have to deal with them throughout the day. And so our job going in was to bathe them, to change them, to feed them, just to hold them was the main thing. And I remember that first day going in, the smell hitting me, and just thinking, oh, this is intense. And that first baby that I picked up, he didn't even have a name. I called him Timothy. And as I held this little baby, it dawned on me how incredibly stiff he was in my arms. And it was because he had never been held before. He had never really experienced that kind of love. And like a wave, it crashed over me that was me. I've been trying and doing, and I never just sat at God's feet and allowed him to hold me. And when I realized that, it was just this sense of, I can let everything else go. I can just be in his presence. He's beside me. He's before me. And as I've realized that over time, the weeks that we were there, obviously, as you hold the babies, they begin to soften in your arms as they begin to experience that love, that personal connection. And that was really the turning point in my life of, no, this is not who I am. This is who God is creating me to be. So that's a little bit about me. And it's still been a journey of learning to just be held and allowing God to soften those hard places in my heart. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so that's incredible. Tell us some of your pet peeves. To kind of just turn the corner from.
That was a hard turn there.
Yeah, I was just like, man, that's cool.
Well,
That's your
crying
holy
babies
journey.
really annoy me.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's cool. Tell me some of your pet peeves.
Some of my pet peeves. Probably one of my biggest ones and probably just how the way that I've was raised and have grown up is
Yodeling.
yes. I do not like The Sound of Music. That movie. I'm sorry. It is such an inaccurate, horrible movie. Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's cool to hear her talk like this.
It is.
It's cool to hear her talk like this. Let's affirm it.
I'm sorry for anyone listening that loves The Sound of Music.
No, don't apologize.
I'm going to sing to you by the end of the.
You can do that. I think growing up, knowing that, man, I thought I was so good and so found. So when I see that in other people putting up these pretenses, that is a huge huge pet peeve for me.
Yeah, I get it. That's
And The
good.
Sound of Music.
And that and The Sound of Music.
Oh, I thought you were still talking about The Sound of Music. I was like, how are they doing that in The Sound of Music?
Do you have a cold?
I mean, they are making a bunch of self-discoveries along.
You're supposed to be connecting the dots here, Stetson.
That's what I was trying to do. I'm trying to fill the space.
You're in your head too much.
I tried too hard.
Yeah.
Let's get.
Speaking of, what's your pet peeve?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like I have like a ton of them. I'm a very
I do too.
sensitive person, and the tiniest things. If I thought about if I had to have a single pet peeve, it's people who go over the speed limit.
Oh.
It really bugs me. I always go under the speed limit.
Oh.
I'm that guy because there are just simple things people can do to keep people safe. It's just that kind of thing. And then if people go over the speed limit, it is a blatant. I don't care about other people.
Oh.
Well,
That's how it
you
feels
put
to me.
it that way.
That's how I feel. And
What if
so
we
I
just
feel that every time. No.
left a little late?
No, people die like that. Then get up early. That's it.
There's a bumper sticker on a car I saw not too long ago, and it said, "Go around me. I left on time."
Amen.
That's good.
True.
Stetson, what about you?
People chewing with their mouth open, like that smacking sound.
Yeah.
That just drives me nuts. People not using their blinker. Use your blinker.
A lot of car things. I think that brings out the worst in us.
Just use your blinker. Like you just go whoop with your hand, and yeah.
I just have to say, for the sake of the podcast and for the sake of my own heart, I got that thing you put in the car for the insurance.
Oh, same.
That it gives you a score. From the day I've had it in there, I've gotten 100%
Wow.
across the board.
That's
like all
great.
the way up and down. I haven't ever gone under, except there was this time that someone called me and like something
dinged
happened
for it.
and I didn't even answer. I didn't, and I was so mad at that person the whole day that they had to call me.
You lowered
Yeah.
my score.
In that time.
Yeah, I was like, man,
It's not safe to get a phone call.
that was like 25
do that.
cents that just got added to my bill.
Oof.
All right.
We have that as well. And my husband and I, because you look at the app, so then it started becoming this competition, but
Yeah.
it was really frustrating me because I am your pet peeve.
Yeah, I know.
Go over the speed limit. And I finally was like, I will not be held hostage to this app. I will drive the way I drive. I will. So I'm like, no more.
It's a long few months.
It is.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
feel really free when that thing gets taken out. And
Yeah, I just
Returned.
don't look at it anymore.
Yeah.
You don't get a higher bill if you don't get 100%. You just don't get the percentage.
I feel like the true speed limit in Colorado is 5 over. Like, you don't get pulled over if you're going 5 over. 6 over, you're
Dead.
But like, doesn't this bring up like the thing of like, I think there's this general idea that if you're not breaking the law, it's okay, and and whatever spectrum, it's not against the law. It's not against the law. If I could take someone to court, like, if it's not against the law, it's okay. But the law is like the bare basic code of morality. So saying I don't get pulled over until it's 5 or above that, there's just a general fundamental perception of society. I don't know. It's a thing.
Yeah. Like
I have a head cold. Sorry, guys. I'm not bringing it today.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'm going to point that.
Yeah, this is our last episode. It's time. Yep, it's been good. No, I think it's another example of like I don't know, we try to create these like rules and these constructs, and at the end of the day, just kind of like your head cold is making you aware of, we're just humans.
It's humans,
Right.
yeah.
And the police officer in the car, like even though like 35 is the speed limit, someone goes by at 39, we're human. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
But here's the thing I was trying to get to. I think to follow Jesus, that is a calling. Mm-hmm. And I think in society, there's been this idea that our laws and the calling of Jesus are very similar. Mm. And if I don't break the law, I am a good person. Mm-hmm. I'm a contributor to society. It's the thing that Janna was bringing up about her pet peeve of people who have built this persona and think that they are close to him, but they don't have a clue who he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They haven't softened, like you said. So
They haven't experienced his closeness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really like the thing you said, Janna. It's been ringing in my ears ever since. Like you said, you were the most found lost person or the most lost
found
person.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's true for every single one of us. Like,
I think there's a lot of lost found people here.
Right. Like it's never, I don't think it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Like it's always both to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like in the beginning, it's like whether you recognize it or not, like God's not like, where did this person go? And
I've misplaced them.
And on
pursuing
top of
us.
that, so in her testimony, it isn't, I grew up in the church and then I fell from Christ. I began doing cocaine and then he found me again. She continued her path and trying to find him.
Yep.
And I just think it was incredible that her whole testimony took place inside of the church context. And that's
and how
beautiful.
many people, probably ourselves included at times, are continue that path.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially, I'll speak for myself, but just working in ministry and having this feeling of like, you are supposed to, have the answers and you are supposed to be doing all the practices and, have this huge closeness, with Jesus and stuff. And there are times where it does not feel that way.
Absolutely.
And to be able to be vulnerable in those times and be like, I'm not feeling it.
Right. I also had been thinking about our baptism service and all of the people who got baptized, and I had someone come up and say, I got baptized at the age of 14 at church camp. I was all in, but I just hit this plateau that I finally understand it. Can I get baptized again?
I love this conversation.
And I sat there, I was like, no, honor the 14-year-old boy who found Jesus. And because you're going to always, hopefully, every day get up and go, oh, I think I got it now. Yeah. And then the following day, oh, I think I got it now. Oh, I think I got it now. But you don't ever get it.
Time to go to the river.
There's nothing to get. And like, this and how he saw himself had been, because I didn't understand everything, the baptism was probably invalid at the time. But it hadn't been invalid. It was exactly the thing it was supposed to be. And it brought you on this journey. And I think the thing I'm trying to get at is, had you actually been lost, had the prodigal son actually vanished, and God was like, I don't have any idea where the prodigal son was. Like, God could point at him and say, he's eating pig poop.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, that's where he is. But from his own perspective, he had been lost. And that's why he had to come back.
Yeah.
But the whole journey he was going on had been his journey of becoming.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like there's a difference between saying I'm lost and like I've been lost. Like I am lost internally. My own self-perception is like I'm lost. I don't have my bearings right now, which is like a good, I think that's the reality of everyone every day of life. I don't fully have my bearings. Things are a little bit cloudy right now, like your head.
My head cold.
Like your head.
I'm sorry, everybody.
No, don't be sorry. And then there's the statement of like, I'm lost. Like I have been lost. Like God has lost track of me and is unaware of where I am. And that's not true. But in the first context of loss, of like, I've lost my bearings, I don't know where I am, I think both things are always true. We are always lost and we are always found at the same time. And I love paradoxes.
Yeah. Yes, you
Those
do.
are fun.
Those are fun.
And like even Janna, like the way that you like you described where you're at right now, like you're still in a place of learning to be held. Yeah. And like how many years ago was that initial experience?
20-something years ago.
20 years ago. And you're still like learning to be held. That's so honest and real.
And great.
Yeah. And you're not alone in that.
I think the thing that's cool about the vocabulary too is it's very simple. There are people I'll talk to and they'll say, I'm just trying to understand the Bible. And like, it's just like, I don't even know how to respond to that. Like that is something special. Or I'm just trying to find who I am. Again, it's
Same.
like, and just to hear, I'm just trying to figure out how to be held. It's like, oh gosh, thank you. Just how to be in the presence of God. That's all I want. I think it's so beautiful.
And I think that imagery too of a baby, like is so beautiful that it is like, that is where we might think we're like, I'm like an adolescent believer, it's like, no, you're still a baby.
You're just a baby.
Laying
Just
in your
a
filth here.
baby. Yeah.
You're being a
You
baby.
need me.
The paradox, though, of she is going in to hold these babies, being the hands and feet of Christ, and she is, and she is in the hands and feet of Christ, or his feet. That'd be kind of weird, but he is in the hands. She's in the hands of Christ at the same time that she is the hands and feet of Christ, and there's something in that basket that's golden that I think is beautiful.
Yeah, it's this cascade
of
like from here to here to here.
And could it be true the more you find your identity in him, the more you find your identity, the closer you are, the clearer that you see the truth of who you are. Going back to your pet peeve, there are times it's very obvious that who people think they are, they actually are not because of the distance that they are from him.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in like, I don't know. I feel like identity, as most people perceive it, is a human construct that we create to have a sense of clarity and guardrails for our lives. Like, I'm not saying each of us individually is just like this ever-changing ball of chaos. Like, there are constants in like who we are, but I think what I'm saying more so is like this drive of like, I'm incomplete unless I'm able to clearly pinpoint what my identity exactly is.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we get out of this form of we don't have room anymore to be in a place like you're in, of like, I'm still learning to do this. Or like with the baptism story, it's like the person wanting to get baptized is because it's like I wasn't there yet, but maybe I'm there now. And it's like, no, you're never there. Like you just are. Like your identity is you are.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's your identity. You just exist. And it doesn't need to be more than that. Like you
it doesn't have to be labeled.
Exactly. Right. Like there is a lot of good and value in like discovering who God has. I'm not even going to say who God has created us to be. Man, how do I want to say it? It's more of like, I don't know. It could be who God has created us to be, but in like this very open sense of like, God has created you to be who you are, but you are who you are at this step in the journey.
Yes.
And you're constantly changing as you're constantly moving forward.
It's my identity 2 weeks ago is not my identity today.
Right.
Or what it will be.
But have people complicated the idea of identity?
Yes.
And I mean, because you think about it, Adam and Eve, they were a very simple form of human being, but perfectish, and God applauded them. Like, yes. And they were they were in the garden together in the presence of God. That was whole. That was all that God asked them to be.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
And thinking about the things today, if I had to say, to feel great about who I am, here's the things I would have to become or accomplish before I die. Those things did not exist in the garden.
Bucket list
All of
didn't
those
exist.
things. Yeah, all those things did not exist in the garden.
Yeah.
And so how did those forms of approval get put on God? I don't know, like that.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, kind of. I feel like identity is put on, like going back to like your story, you know, your identity as a young kid was almost put on you of who you were.
Absolutely.
Your identity is supposed to be this because you're a
Yodeling.
pastor's
Because
daughter.
you're in this
You must yodel. You must make cheese and shoes.
And wear hats.
Yes.
But yeah,
Donko.
like I remember as a kid, like, you know, in like performing and stuff like that, my identity was put on me as you're funny, you're a performer, you can, you know, and so I put that on myself and find when I'm in a situation with people that I maybe not know, like that's my identity to perform. That's my, to try and be funny, to try and break the ice, you know, that kind of a thing. And then when my identity is real and becomes this place of like, I don't have it in me right now, people that know me think the world's falling apart, you know, 'cause you're supposed to be happy all the time. You know, if Jenny's not happy, something's really wrong, you know, but it's like, so I feel that like, even as a young kid, sometimes your identity is put on you because of how people perceive you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's this phrase that always bugs me. And I understand the heart behind it, and the heart behind it is good. But it's this phrase of like people talk about on a spiritual level, it's like, to God, I am enough. And that bugs me because it has nothing to do with being enough. Like, like it's not about, you're not enough. Like that was never like the qualification for God's love in the first
not the
place.
point.
Like you don't have to be enough. Like And it's not about Jesus
You can be in
making
a
you
deficit.
enough like Jesus did, simply because he loves you. And he loves you because he loves you. And it's not because
Yeah, it's kind of
You're
like
enough.
going outside on a beautiful hike and going, that's enough.
right.
You know, like,
right.
oh, you know, that feels like enough to me.
Right. And it bothers me because I feel like, and I know other people have a different perception of this, and for the way that they're interpreting it, it's like
There's a whole campaign
I'm sure
behind
they probably
it. Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
But it's like, it bothers me because it's like, no, you are still, like, even though you're accepting this idea that you are enough for God, you are still holding yourself within this construct where you need to be enough.
Yeah.
You don't.
Right.
You're just
You are.
You are. And that is your identity. And you get to discover who you are. And it's always
Really
changing.
good. And so in that sermon I just got done doing, there's a part towards the end of the passage that like David's talking about. He's being like, God saves him because he delights in him. I did not plan on talking about that part at all during the sermon, but it actually became the focal point of people feel that this like guilt and shame that God has to save them, or they did not do something. God, and it's just like, no, God, he dances around you. He enjoys being your father. He wants to save you. It's like that idea of picking a flower and going, that's enough. I mean, like, do you ever say that? No. And like for me and my son or my daughter, if they come to me and say, Dad, am I enough? What a horrible question.
I know. It would be heartbreaking.
What a horrible question. What are you thinking about?
Yeah.
I failed as a father.
Seriously.
And
yeah.
so
what have I done to cause you to even ask this question?
why is that a thing for us? God, am I enough for you? Ugh.
I think because we are a culture that is striving for more than enough. The people that were around, or social media, everything it's more than enough. So if I'm just enough, I feel good, like that's where it feels good. So like, I get it. I see both sides, but yeah.
And in that logic, like, if we get to a place where we create a standard for enough and we get there is a sense of peace that like comes from that. But as soon as that, like, say, I'm enough if my house is kept clean. I know that's silly,
No,
but that's
but-
not what someone's going to base
But
their
it
whole
helps,
identity.
though,
Yeah. I'm enough if
everything
my
else.
house is kept clean. And you try as hard as you can, but then the water heater breaks and your basement floods and there's mold and it's just totally outside of your control. All of a sudden, you are not enough. And because of something totally outside of your control, and it's inevitable, your house is never going to be clean. How, like, it is a journey of relearning a paradigm and acceptance to get to the place where we stop trying to find the sense of enough and we just let go of that construct entirely. And a couple podcasts ago, I mentioned that book by Henry Nouwen where like the core of the beginning of the book is like, just accept that you are nothing.
Yes.
And once you do, that's when you can embrace everything. Because you're not using it as this platform to build yourself up on. You get down to ground level, and then everything is a gift.
Yeah.
And you are a gift. And you are just like, you can't take away anything if you are nothing. Because if you're nothing, then you're absolutely everything at the same time in this weird backward paradox. And it's beautiful.
I love that picture of laying down your identity.
Yeah.
I think of Moses. That's always been one of my favorite stories. And I think of, him fleeing Egypt because he tried to do things on his own. And then he finds himself in the wilderness as a shepherd and taking care of sheep, the whole burning bush. And as he approaches and he realizes he's talking to God, and God has this huge thing for him, and God asks him to basically lay down your identity, lay down your staff. That's what he has. That was his form of protection to what he was good at. And God says, lay it down. And then God does something incredible. It turns it into a snake. It's all God. But we have to get to that point of let's lay down our identity so that way God can truly do something incredible through us.
I think it's all encapsulated in like what the way you describe yourself. And I think I'm doing the reverse of it, but I like the reverse of it here, of just like, it's true for every single one of us that you are the most found lost person. Mm-hmm. You cannot be found to a greater degree, which is like what you were talking about last weekend in your sermon. It's like you can't find someone to more of a degree than that.
Yep.
And we're all just human, and we're trying to figure it out, and we're learning all these things, and we're catching our bearings. But while all of that is happening, you could not be more found.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, thank you for summarizing. I was then brought to this headspace of if one of the kids that I had played hide and seek in the house that I have, and they had to stay in the house, although that they were hiding, I'd be like, they're in my house. You are not. And in the book of Psalms, like, there's that picture always being painted. I could not go to the ends of the earth that you're not going to find me. I couldn't go, dig a hole that you won't be there. It's like, God sees you in all of the places because it's his house. It's his home. It's you can't hide. And and I go to a dark place of the house and God turns the light on, says, I see you. I mean, like, it's like that kind of, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
It's like, this idea is a silly thing of feeling like I can out-hide God. It's a silly game of hide and seek.
And what you just said, it applies to identity too.
Yeah.
Like we say this phrase, I haven't found my identity yet. Like it's lost out there. Like it's where did it go? Is it under the table? Where's my identity?
Who am I?
And in the same sense, it's like your identity has never been more found. Like when in the search of like, I don't know who I am, God is like, I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. And there's not like this pressure. It's like, and you need to figure it out too. It's like
read this book.
Yeah, it's just like there's peace in knowing it's like, even if I haven't figured out who I am, like even though that, like we've been talking about, maybe that's not even the right question. There's peace in knowing it's like, at least God knows who I am.
Yeah.
That's good.
Amen. All right.
Beautiful. Thank you guys. And you're going to see this, so.
Yes, this is what was in the last one.
Passed the test.
We found it again.
Thank you, Janna, for being here, and we will see you guys next time.